going on, everybody, and welcome to episode number 2 of the Hello, My Name Is podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Joe Cardoza, and today we have another exciting show lined up for you guys. Before we get to our guest we have this week, I want to thank everybody for checking out the debut episode. I'm really happy with the response I got from everybody and the feedback, good and bad. It is appreciated, but always, like I say, I value your time. So let's just jump right into this thing, and we're going to go ahead and bring on this week's guest. Introduce yourself to the people, my friend.
Hello, everybody watching. I am Marshall Pampkin II, known in a lot of arts communities as North Star or Poet North Star. Nice to be here.
Outstanding, man. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it, brother.
No worries. I'm happy to.
No, I've been picking your brain with all kinds of things before I got this thing off the ground. So, like I told the people that watch the show, listen to the podcast, I also appreciate your help in helping this new project get up off the ground, man. But you know me. Let's just jump right into this thing, man. So, let's take it back to Army veteran. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I want to start with you becoming a creative, or you figuring out, hey, I am a creative. Was that something that happened during your time in the service, after your time in the service? How did you know that, hey, I am a creative, that's what I want to do?
It started before, but it didn't really develop until later. I was actually on my personal Facebook, I was responding to somebody asked a similar question. And I started writing in high school. I was 14 or 15 when I wrote my first poem. But it wasn't anything other than just me, just dealing with emotions, dealing with teenage angst, drama stuff. And I didn't have any intention towards it being anything else. A couple friends eventually found out, and I started playing Cyrano for them, writing love letters for their boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. Yeah, I hated that. In fact, that's if anybody's watching this that was around in my early days performing in the late 90s, early 2000s, I would often deny writing love poems. That is exactly why. I was just writing just for my own sake, really. And then it was after I joined the Army, after I got stationed at Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty, after I got stationed there, that I got called out in front of a crowd. A friend of mine had been performing, and I'd been watching him at least a couple weeks, and he had no idea I wrote. And he comes back to the table as I'm sitting with my arm like huddled into my notebook, writing like this. And the host, who would eventually become my mentor, he was stalling for time, and my friend comes over and he sees what I'm doing. He's like, "Hey, North, what's going on?" And he grabs my notebook, and he's like, I'm not going to say the exact words to say. I'm just going to say he called me out in front of the crowd, Marty McFly style. And little arrogant 19-year-old paratrooper that I wasn't going to have that. So I got up and I performed, and in fact, that was 25 years ago this past March. 25 years ago this upcoming September will be my 25th anniversary hosting. I started co-hosting that same event later that year. And as far as the military, it's honestly one influenced the other. One influence who I was as a poet influenced who I was as a soldier, and vice versa. And whoever I am today wouldn't exist one without the other.
Interesting. Now, I want to talk about that a little bit, dive a little deeper into your being a creative. I know that you do a whole lot more than just writing and hosting. So as far as the photography aspect, the filmmaking aspect, how did that passion become? That's something you just stumbled into, or how did you become interested in that and become very good at both of those as well, by the way?
I want to say part of it, you got to blame Waffle House.
Not the Waffle House, man. I'm trying to get sponsors here.
Yeah, no. So early on in my writing, I felt something was missing. I didn't consider myself a poet, performance poet, slam, none of that. I thought those were all that was being pretentious until I realized I was the one being pretentious. But early on, I realized something was missing, and some of the poets I ran with back in the day, we would do different things. Like, we all loved stage plays, and we fell in love with the one-act plays of David Ives, and so we would do those during the open mic. And I was like, no, something is still missing. And as my writing evolved into more painting pictures with words, I guess, I realized I wanted a visual element. Cue Waffle House, circa 2006, I think. Maybe before that, but I think it was 2006. Me and Chet, who you know, and another friend of ours back when we were all at Bragg, Dave, we're all in a Waffle House, and we normally did not go on Sundays during the day. Didn't want to compete with the church crowd for seats. But Dave wanted to go, so we went. And while we're sitting there, we walk in the door and we go to the high bar, and I sit down and they sit down on, I think they both sat down on my right side. And I get up and I go to the jukebox because we walked into Waffle House. First thing I did is I went to the jukebox and I put certain songs on. And I pop them all in, and one of them was always My Girl. My Girl pops on, and I start singing, and one of the waitresses starts singing. And then another waitress looks at that waitress, looks at me, mean mugs me. Line cook like does a 180, spins from the line to the counter, hip checks that second waitress out of the way, starts singing. I feel a tap on my shoulder. A Cumberland County Sheriff's deputy is standing there, and I look, he starts singing, and right then the entire Waffle House goes up in the chorus of My Girl, and I was like, people are not going to believe this. Why don't I have a video camera with me? And that's when it hit me. I was like, that's the element I'm missing from all the creative work, from the poetry is the video element. I write not so much to be read, I write to be heard. And years later, live streaming was becoming common. I was down in Columbia, South Carolina, and there was a place called the Art Bar. I don't know if it's still there. They were doing a monthly live stream, part of one of their open mics, and I was watching them. I was like, oh man, this is great. This is awesome. I wish I could do this. And they were like, oh yeah, North Star, we'd like to get you up there and do something. I'm like, no, bro, don't get me wrong. I like my time in the spotlight. Yes. But at this point, I was in my 30s, and I'm like, as a performer, I'm already at a point in my career where I want to start pushing other people up.
Yeah.
And lifting other people up and putting them out front. So got out the Army 2013, went back to North Carolina. I picked up a camcorder and some equipment, starting with an event in South Carolina, and then later one in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I started experimenting until I figured out how to get the live stream right, and picked it up from there. And then the next thing, somebody asked me to do a music video, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. I forgot where I was going.
A music video? How was that, man? How do you go from self-taught to, I'll do a music video and not feel like, talk about pressure?
I don't know if you'd ever, back when we were in Fayetteville, I don't know if you'd ever heard of a band called We Were Once. Their lead singer, Courtney Sapp, she was a regular at the open mic at the Coffee Scene that I hosted on and off, 99 to 06, and then again from 2013 to, when did I leave Fayetteville? 2017. She was a regular there, and we were outside one night talking. I think it was after one of my live streams. We were outside one night talking, and she's going on about how she wanted to do a music video, and she had thrown some money down with somebody and questionable choices, et cetera, et cetera. I looked at her. I was like, I always imagined making, when I picked up my first camera, I was like, oh, maybe I can make a movie. Maybe I could do this one day. I was imagining doing stuff. I don't know what I'm doing, but if you're willing to work with me, I'll shoot one for you. Just don't make me promise anything. And she goes, no, that's fine. She's like, how much you want? I was like, nothing. This is you helping me helping you. I reached out to a friend of mine who's still a photographer and filmmaker there in Fayetteville, Nick Rossi, Sin Sound Media and Recording Arts. I reached out to him. He and I have been working together. I was doing some just concert footage sort of thing for one of the events at the Rock Shop, and Nick was doing that. And Nick and I, we knew each other many years before we got reconnected. And Nick came in, he did all my sound. He helped me out a lot learning the editing. And literally, I watched YouTube videos. I watched other music videos. I asked the artist what she was looking for. And I said, do you have any other music videos to show me so I have a visual example? Listened to her song a number of times, got the lyrics. Okay, all right. She told me she had a couple blocks she wanted to check. And I was like, okay, let me think of locations where I can go for railroad tracks. Let me think of locations where I can go to have this, to have that. And we went out. This was 2014. We went out in February for a location shoot or location scout. And I had one of my camcorders out there and I was just recording stuff, and I was having her actually go through the motions like we were shooting. Wound up being a good thing. And then March, we went out and we actually shot the whole thing. Started at 10 in the morning, I think. at one park and then jumped to another location and then jumped back to Nick's recording studio where we shot the rest of it while we were laying down her master. And when the editing came around, there were a few shots that were missing, a few things that just didn't look as good. I didn't know jack about lighting. I didn't know any of this stuff. Dude with a couple of camcorders, that was it. And I'm glad I did that location shoot. That location scout. I'm glad I shot some of that because some of that actually wound up in the music video.
Pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. You have to send me the link to that. I want to check that out. See how it looks from the blast in the past. Let's move forward to nowadays, and I want to talk to you about your hosting. You talked about that as well as you hosting different events. Now you host open mics. I know locally in Colorado Springs, Trivia Night on Tuesdays, Dave and Buster's. You're the host. A couple of questions there. How'd you get into the hosting thing? And then what is your it's Tuesday. You're about to go host an event. What's your preparation like for that as far as hosting goes? That's something that a lot of people say they want to do, but most don't have the nerve to do.
Yeah, it's difficult. Like so many other things, as much as I had the rock star dreams as a kid, oh yeah, I'm going to get up on stage, I'm going to sing my favorite songs, whatever. I never had any intent, like a lot of things in my life. I just kind of stumbled into it. It was like, oh, hey, shiny object. Next thing you know, I'm standing on stage with a microphone, But no, so that first open mic where I started performing at the coffee scene, back then it was called Java Jams. It's now called Java Expressions. That was being hosted by Neil Ray. And it was kind of crazy because we were on the second level of a two-story coffee shop. Back then it was right next to the Carmike 12 movie theater that used to be there in Fayetteville. And it was packed. We didn't have a sound system. You guitarist, if you were singing too, you had to sing over your guitar. Poets, we just had to go over everybody. And Neil, he drove part-time for FTD, delivering flowers. And Sunday, which was the night of our open mic, was their biggest day. Starting with, the friend who first got me to perform, he passed away a few months later. We lost him in a car accident. And we did a memorial for him at the open mic, and somehow I wound up being at the forefront. Everybody said, hey, North Star, you do this. I'm like, me? Why me? Do you do this? Okay. Then after that, every Sunday, Sunday being the busiest day for a floral delivery, Neil would be late. He'd be late a lot of times, and most people didn't have cell phones. This was 99. Most people did not have cell phones. Wasn't like you could call him or you could call somebody. And one day I just got tired of people groaning about why can't we start? And I was like, guys, here's a sheet of paper. Put your names down. Make a list. Is this what Neil does? I don't know what Neil does. I'm newer here than all of you. Make a list. And about 3-4 different occasions of doing that, Neil finally pulls me aside one day. He's like, bro, you ever consider hosting? I'm like, I don't know jack about hosting. He's like, you're already doing it. I was like, I'm basically being a carny barker. I'm just, next up is blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, the rest you learn along the way, and I did. And then that third Sunday in September of 1999, I initially stood up as the new solo host of the open mic, but military responsibilities got in the way. And so Neil came back and we started the tag team, the at least 2, if not 3 host format that has been carried on all the way up to this very day at that show. And it was me and Neil. And then for a while we had it as a series. I don't know if you remember when we were working together back in North Carolina, just for the coffee scene alone, I had Sundays. Then one Sunday a month, I was producing the live stream. Then we had Mondays. Then Tuesdays, I was at the coffee scene's other location on the other side of Spring Lake out in Spout Springs. For those of you that aren't really sure, picture about a 30-minute drive away from downtown, and that's kind of where I had to go between the 2 locations. We had a whole series going on like that. And then one thing led to another. Next thing I know, I was being asked to host different places all over the Ville, and then Army sent me away, and I went off to recruiting, and I was in upstate New York, and somebody was like, hey, North Star, you hosting an event there now? I was like, no, guys, that was just a fluke. It was a thing. Those 7 years in Fayetteville, I got to do a lot of great stuff. No, I run into a coffee shop right around the corner from my recruiting station. They had a floundering open mic, and I was like,
Talk about karma and calling.
Yeah, yeah, and I've been doing it ever since. I did a little bit in Germany when I was over there,
Oh
New
wow.
York, Vermont. Yeah, a little bit in South Carolina when I was back there the last time. Then back to Fayetteville, a few different shows there, and out here in Colorado. Now I will say, trivia nights, that was more deliberate. With trivia nights, I had my wife and I were sitting there looking, and I can't do your typical 9 to 5 anymore. Various medical issues and whatnot. Thankfully, the VA's gotten better, and I'm dealing with that. But so I'm always doing freelance stuff. I was door dashing before I popped on here, and I was just trying to find something for extra money because I'll hit when I came out to Colorado, I told myself I'm retired from hosting. 2019, 1999 to 2019. That's a lot of years of hosting. I'm done. I just want to go back to being a performer. I want to be that guy that hangs out in the back of the room. You see me once or twice at a show here or there, and that was it. I'm done. Yeah, that didn't happen. But anyway, I told my wife, I was like, she didn't know me back in the days when I was running around, doing 4 or 5 shows a week, to include living the Army life and doing that. I told her, I said, I miss having more shows and having the variety of different places to host and crowds to work with. Because everything from military functions to me and LJ Bones once or twice hosted a fashion show. I mean, I've just all kinds of stuff. But she's scouring Indeed because she was thinking about switching jobs at the time, and she goes, "Well, I was going to do this game night thing, but it looks like it might be more your speed." I hemmed and hawed on it for about 2 days because I saw it was. If anybody from Dave and Buster's watches this, don't be mad at me. I saw it was Dave and Buster's, and I thought that was a little too corporate for me.
Always anti-establishment. Gotta respect that.
It's the guys. I'd messaged them all. I was like, guys, I'm thinking about doing a Dave and Buster's hosting thing, and some of them started laughing right away because they're like, dude, that's the sort of thing you used to make fun of. And I was like, yeah, I know, but hey, it's paying, whatever, let's do this.
Yeah.
And I love it. So now I'm not actually employed by Dave and Buster's. I'm a subcontractor. There's another company, and that guy's actually wants to build a team here in the Springs now, and tentatively, at least, he's trying to make me the anchor for the team. So I'm canvassing bars right now for because we do trivia, music bingo. You probably won't catch me hosting the karaoke nights, but karaoke,
You won't catch me there. I'm not a singer. I sing in the private of my own home or the car, and that's it.
I'm not afraid to get up and sing at karaoke. I just know I make Tone Deaf Grizzly Bear sound good. So I'm not going to be, I'll MC it if I have to. I've MC'd karaoke nights. I will do it if I have to, but we got some other hosts in the works in the Springs. Hopefully we'll be able to get them on board once we get these other events going.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, of course, currently, not for much longer, which is a good thing, you'll be a graduate from Full Sail. Mm-hmm. So talk about kind of what are your plans for, okay, you're done with school. What do you want to do ideally next? Start working on a documentary, indie film? Are you going to freelance? Have no clue. What's like the next step for you once school is over and you can finally put that degree and all that learning you did to use?
It's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other from everything you just said right there.
Nothing wrong with that.
But no, so like I think I'd said earlier, making short films and stuff like that was always something I thought I would like to do. Me and my friends used to try to write scripts and stuff like that, just for the sake of doing it, just exercise the creative muscle. And I never thought I would get there. And when I started at Full Sail, I knew I wanted to get back to doing music videos because that one music video I did for Courtney, not my best work, but it put the bug in me. And I've everything from hired gun for different video projects. Somebody said, hey, I need a camera and a body to use it. I was like, okay, all right, I'm there. I really kind of got the bug in me. And after I wrote my first script for school at Full Sail, I think your ninth class, at least the degree program, it changes. It's constantly evolving. But when I started, it was your ninth class was your screenwriting. And when I wrote my first short film script, I was like, oh, I can do stuff. and I've directed 2 short films and, well, 3 if you count the mini documentary, and then 1 or 2 other like info videos, stuff like that as part of my school portfolio. But the first short film and the mini doc, those really kind of woke me up too, to the point where Chet is, he acts as producer for a great deal of my video stuff. And when he and I are sitting down spitballing ideas, there's one that, if whether I win the lottery and I have a budget that I can play with, or whether I get sponsorship and whatever the case may be, there are a couple films I really want to make. That first script I never did turn into a film, and I want to turn that one into a film. I didn't do that one because time requirements. It had to be 5 minutes or less, the final cut of it. And when I cut the script down, in film, in screenwriting, I have to say 1 page of scripted dialogue is 1 minute of screen time, and 5 minutes, so you're looking at 5-7 pages max, because scene headers and stuff like that can add more, take up more space in the page. This, when I cut down my first script, which was semi-autobiographical, from 30 pages to 20 pages to 13. Eventually, I trimmed the fat like crazy down to 13 pages, and the story just wasn't worth telling anymore, in my opinion. So that's one. The other, and this is one, I won't be too terribly mad if somebody gets this made before me. I really would love to do a film, if not a series, maybe trilogy of films covering the life of Captain Robert Smalls. That's something that hits me right in the heart right there.
Give us a little background on who that is for those people who are watching and listening who have no clue who that is.
Captain Robert Smalls wore many hats in his life, but where he started, at least where history records him, is he was a slave at the start of the Civil War. He was a slave in South Carolina on a plantation there. His slave owner, his plantation owner, of course, wanted to support the Confederate forces during the Civil War, and had Captain Smalls, then Private Smalls, serve in his stead in the Confederate Navy. This afforded Robert Smalls an opportunity. He got his family and a couple other families from the plantation. They got a hold of some Confederate officers' uniforms. In the middle of the night, during a party, they stole one of the Confederate ships, using nothing but lights and hand-arm signals, disguised in their uniforms, sailed across enemy waters, turned in the ship, and this began one of a number of circumstances, sometimes directly ordered by President Lincoln. Like, I don't know if they were face-to-face, but where Robert Smalls would do this stuff. And he eventually got a temporary commission in the Navy. Then he was in the Union Army for like 6 months, and then they put him back in the Union Navy and actually gave him a provisional commission as a captain, where he served out the rest of the war. And then he became one of the first Black elected officials to South Carolina State House, eventually becoming owner of the same plantation he was a slave on.
Oh, yeah. I've watched that. You got to make that happen, man. Just you talking about it, I can see how that could be a trilogy. You can't fit all those stories into one movie. Not that I'm Robert Ebert or one of those guys that does reviews, but something tells me if you put all that into one movie, it's going to be too mumbled and too jumbled together. That's incredible. I never heard that story in my life. Wow.
There's so many stories out there, and they touch so many things out there, whether it's relating to social tensions, whether it's relating to history, what we're taught versus what objectively happened, and how sometimes the differences, again, from an objective perspective, the differences are tiny, but the impact of those differences is significant. There's so many things out there, but that's one of my dream projects. I won't necessarily be mad if somebody gets it made before me, but that's one of my dream projects. But yeah, no, when I finish school, I plan on actually formalizing a lot of stuff, starting my LLC and whatnot. I've already got one of many side projects in mind that I want to do as far as a nonprofit, helping film students, not just mostly college level, but some high school, because some of the schools around here, they got these film programs, some of the high schools. So helping them with things that I struggled with, like don't have a budget. There's literally no such thing as a zero budget film because you're spending money on gas to drive there, if nothing else. But me and Chet, Chet would, depending on what he had, what I had, we would just cobble together, occasionally buy equipment, craft what we could. Nick Rossi, who I mentioned earlier, when I first started working with him, he was building his own dollies and stuff like that. And so I've got a bunch of YouTube videos for DIY film equipment and video equipment. But I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to do that. 20 years ago, different story. Now, I'm not trying to do that. But I don't want people to go through some of the same struggles that I have gone through and I'm still going through now. So I would like to create a nonprofit that focused on college, some high school level students with student films, and providing at least some kind of budget. If initially I'm able to raise enough to where each recipient only gets $1,000 for a student film, that's a lot.
Yeah, especially when it comes from zero, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. Now, my last question for you would be for anybody who's out there, like you talked about, YouTube videos. There's lots of resources out there, equipment for the high school student or college student that's an aspiring creator, that whether they want to do film, photography, poetry. What advice would you give those people who are just getting started out or want to get started?
Well, for that, I actually touch on this a little bit in some of my spoken word, some of my performance poetry pieces. All of your fear and hesitation, all of your worries about what could go wrong, all of your worries about how you're not going to finish and how you're not going to do this don't mean jack if you are not actually taking the first step forward. I have this piece I wrote called Do Re Mi. And it was, I was sitting down with a young lady at a coffee shop, talking to her. She wanted to start writing poetry. Her boyfriend is sitting on the other side of the table, talking with a couple of my musician friends, trying to learn guitar. And I'm listening to each of them get so frustrated. And, at first I'm empathizing, but then after a little bit, I'm starting to get a little annoyed, not so much at them, but because I know what that feels like. And I wrote this piece, and the whole point of it is, look, so many people, they start off and they want to be the next Scorsese. They want, or they want to be, they want to be the next this or that. They want to be writing songs that last forever. Bob Dylan gets his songs covered by everybody, and it's like, bro, I performed at an open mic that years before my time, but once had Bob Dylan there. You know what that tells me? He started someplace just like this. Ani DeFranco once played there early in her career, started someplace just like this. I've worked with people who have gone on to star on Disney. We all start at this one spot. And if you spend all your time fretting about it, you don't take that first step, then the rest isn't going to matter. You come to my open mic, you can worry all day long how you're going to suck or be great. If you're not putting your name on the sign-up sheet and then coming up to the stage when you're called and then putting it all out there, good, bad, or indifferent. And it's vulnerable. Yes, it's frightening. First of all, sticking with the open mic example, the moment you have done that, put your name on the sign-up sheet, answered the call, stepped up, shared your performance, you've done more. Even if you bombed, even if it completely sucked, you have done more than half the people that might be sitting there talking about what they would do if they got up there because they didn't like the way somebody sounded or something like that. You've done more right there. So nerves, anxiousness, that's a reminder you're human. You're alive. Enjoy the ride. All right. And those nerves, especially if you're a performer, if you're in front of the camera, if you're behind the mic, whatever the case may be, it's energy. Channel it. Channel it to whatever first inspired you, motivated you, put pen to paper, pluck a set of strings, beat a drum, tickle the ivory, just let it flow. If you're trying to create something, I every now and then I'll be shooting something, and somebody, usually some kids, will come up and they'll be looking, and sometimes if I'm not busy in the moment, I'll be like, hey, you want to come over check this out? What's up? You curious? And they're like, well, I want to do this, and to get this camera and to do that. And I'm like, bro. One of my most popular little videos, it was a stupid, corny little thing me, my wife, and a few friends shot during COVID called Tornado Warning. all shot on an iPad and a couple of iPhones. That's it. No sound. I threw it in there, and then I popped it into Premiere Rush. I threw some music on it, threw some graphics on it. It's really that simple. Where there's a will, there's a way. Just be willing to try, be willing to reach out, be willing to fall on your face 10 times before you get it right once. Otherwise, you're not likely to learn. And video, film, photography, poetry, low-key music. There's a lot of stuff out there. And all of it I failed more often than I've succeeded, but I got to where I am, for better or for worse, because I just kept pushing.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely agree with you on that. And especially in these days and times, like you talked about, the resources are there. I mean, almost everybody has a cell phone. You might not have an iPhone, but you got an Android, it's got a camera, you can record there. There's so many free programs because everybody wants their app to be the next app to pop off. So if you can't afford an Adobe or you can't afford a Canva, there's some free service out there you can master and learn. If you don't know how to use that service, here's the crazy part. You go on YouTube and you write in Marshall video editing. I guarantee you there's a how-to video on how to use the Marshall video editing software, and you can use that master it. And like you said before, now you're honing your craft. And when you do get to those Adobes or you get to those big time equipment, it's like almost like riding a bike. It's a few new buttons here or there, but for the most part, it should be for you like riding a bike, because you're absolutely right. A lot of people talk about it, but not too many people do it, for sure.
Yeah, sure. That's true. Sorry, I'm actually like this whole time I've been trying to sort through my YouTube links because I wanted to send you that first music video.
Yeah, I definitely got to check that out, man. I got to check that out for sure, man. But no, Marshall, I definitely want to thank you for your time, sharing your story and sharing your journey. If you guys want to check out more of Marshall's works, we'll have all the links in the description. So you definitely want to make sure you follow him. A guy of jack of many trades. We worked together before. What actually got the camaraderie and the friendship started was him being creative. Because I was kind of like, I had started Nuts and Bolts Sports, what it was called before. It was called Team MBS Media. And I was thinking about making that transition to doing not just sports, but doing a little bit of everything. And I had gone to broadcasting school, but no one told me that when you go to broadcasting school and graduate, you don't instantly get a job at ESPN. So I was like, I'm not going to go call minor league baseball in Idaho or hockey in Nebraska. I was going to give up on this dream. And then talking to Marshall and finding out he does film, photography, I was like, this guy does all the stuff I gave up, he does. So the conversations kind of started that way. So I definitely made sure that when I started this new adventure with the Hello, My Name Is, one of the first names that popped up on my list of who I wanted to talk to and give people a chance to kind of hear his story was Marshall. So yeah, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you coming on.
No worries. Thank you. One last thing I'd like to say.
Yeah, for sure.
You triggered one of the things I wanted to throw out there. Folks, networking. And it's not a mystery. Like at Full Sail, YouTube is replete with videos why you should or shouldn't go to Full Sail. Well, you blah 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 blah. Big controversy because it is a for-profit school. Yeah. Here's the thing: Full Sail gives you a lot of stuff. Like I've got, because I did 2 different enrollments, I have 2 different cinema cameras from Full Sail. I've got like kits and all this other great stuff. Right. The best thing, the networking. You have classes. Randall Gim, not in my degree program, but we had a class together. As you have classes with people from sports broadcasting, from computer animation, from this, that, and the other, and they have classes with other people from your degree program. All that networking really helps. And if you do nothing else, get to know people. Just get to know people. And if somebody says, hey, look, man, I need some help, but all I need is a PA, which really you shouldn't just be a coffee boy, but that's really what you are. It shouldn't be, but that's what you are. If that's what you're doing, that's what you're doing, because it's getting you around them and it's getting you in their circle. And if they don't know your name, they're at least going to know your face, and they're going to learn your name after, and so on and so forth. Just try, just get out there, network, see what happens.
Wise words for sure. Once again, man, thanks a lot for coming on, Marshall. I appreciate the time, brother.
Hey, thank you, brother. I appreciate you, Joe.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of Hello, My Name Is. On our next episode, I'm excited about this because for those people who don't know, I've been in the restaurant industry for a long time, and it's finally my first opportunity to talk to a real live chef. So we're going to chop it up a little bit, and I'll get to know about her career and her journey, and that'll be next week. Make sure you like, you subscribe, share the YouTube link or share the podcast link. You can find the show on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, all the major podcast platforms. Just look up the name Hello, My Name Is. And also you can find us on the Team MBS Media YouTube channel. Joe Cardoza, and I'll catch you guys next week. Thanks again for tuning in.